In this particular video, we would be continuing on our journey with respect to management and cost accounting, the first chapter where we are getting introduced to the concepts of cost and management accounting. In this particular video, we would be dwelling into details of cost accounting. But before we get on to the discussion of cost accounting, we need to understand what is meant by cost. In plain English, cost refers to the price that you pay in exchange for enjoying a good or service, or in other words, is the amount of expenditure incurred or attributable to a given thing. Cost is a measurement in terms of monetary for the amount of resources used for the purpose of production of goods or rendering a service. Now, there are three concepts that we will have to discuss at this juncture. First is cost, next is expense, and finally loss. Cost is simply the amount of money that you're spending for is simply the amount of money that you're spending. When you are spending that money for a specific purpose, there is a specific source of revenue attached to it. Your cost is becoming an expense. When your expense is greater than the revenue generated, the expense has become a loss for you. So, in the eyes of cost accounting, cost, expense, and loss are three distinct terms. Now let's move on from here. Let's try and understanding what is meant by costing. The process of trying to estimate and figure out the cost is called as costing. When we talk about cost accounting refers to the entire subject, which comprises of concepts, principles, methodologies, practices, formats. All this put together is what we call as cost accounting. Now, the definition of cost accounting, the application of costing and cost accounting principles, methods, techniques to the science, art, and practice of cost control and ascertainment of profitability. This is the definition given by Chartered Institute of Management Accountants in UK. In other words, in plain English, cost accounting is the accounting mechanism which helps us to identify cost. We would have to try and figure out costs which are associated often with production activities, or in terms of providing a service, so that we can go about streamlining these activities. So cost accounting is that branch which helps us to figure out all this. Our next discussion is about cost center. What is cost center? Cost center refers to the smallest unit of an organization from which we can go about preparing reports with respect to cost. Whenever we talk about complex organizations, we can see that for effective management, the organization can be broken down into smaller units. You can have strategic business units, you can have departments, you can have divisions. Yeah. So these are structures that are created to serve or help us effectively manage the organization. Now, cost center is the smallest segment of the organization that has been created, which helps us to collect cost, prepare reports around these costs, so that we can go about effectively monitoring these costs, and thereby with which we can go about increasing the accountability among the employees working in that particular organization. Now, there are two types of cost centers: production cost center, service cost center. Whenever the cost center is directly involved in a manufacturing operation, or whenever the cost center has a source of revenue attributable against it, it becomes production cost center. Whenever the cost center does not have a revenue source, however, is needed in the organization to supplement or support the production cost center, it is referred to as service cost center. We can talk about many functions in an organization. Let's say production department or the manufacturing department. Manufacturing departments, they churn out the products or services which are needed, and these generate revenue for us. But let's say the HR department. HR department may not generate revenue directly, but if the HR department is not there, then the organization may not be able to function effectively. So the HR department is now a service cost center. The next discussion is about cost unit. What is a cost unit? Cost unit is the unit of quantity of a product, service, or time in relation with which all the costs may be ascertained or expressed. So let's think of an example. Imagine you walk into a shoe shop or shoe showroom and you ask for a pair of shoes. The salesman would not come and tell you that the left pair costs 800 rupees, right pair costs 4,000 rupees. So when you have picked up your favorite shoe pair, when you go to the billing counter, for the left as well as for the right side of the shoe, the shopkeeper tells you this is the amount. So that is what is referred to as a cost unit. So cost unit in plain English is the unit of quantity of a product or service or time against which you can express all the possible costs which are associated with the cost of production. So with that, we've come to the end of this video on cost accounting.